Hello, fellow fantasy sports fans. Welcome to MFSN The Hub's Fantasy Baseball Waiver Wire Show every Thursday at 4:45 p.m. Eastern, 1:45 p.m. Pacific. Today, I'm joined only by Ross the Boss.
Hey, everybody. I'm Ross the Boss, and I want to talk baseball waiver wire with you, cowboy. God, I love baseball season. Have you been watching a lot of games, Dr. Dan Ratner?
I wish that I could say I've been seeing a lot of games, which is interesting. When I fall into the fantasy perspective, I'm looking at the numbers. I'm analyzing the numbers. And yes, of course, I like to get an eye on the game. But interestingly, I find that in football, it's most important that you watch the games because you see something totally different than the way the numbers show up. In baseball, you can trust the numbers a lot more. That's one of the things I love about the game. So let's get right to it. Casey's out today. He had something with parenting duty. We'll give him a hard time about it when he comes back. Or maybe not. Maybe we'll be generous. But anyways, every week we release these shorts leading up to it. So I talked about Jose Miranda. Ross, you talked about Tommy Pham. Casey talked about Max Meyer. We're going to talk about all three of those guys and more. Remember, it's 60% and under rostership on Yahoo is our threshold and what we're talking about. So, Ross, let's get right to it. We're going to talk about kind of our top four pickups. It doesn't matter what position they play. I just want to hear from you about the ones that you think are the absolute best pickups of the week.
So I'll start first. So Tommy Pham was my pick yesterday, and I'm still taking him as my top waiver wire pickup. I know he's 34 years old. I know he plays for the 3-21 Cincinnati Reds. They're losing right now. They could be 3-22. We'll see what happens. Tommy Pham, though, hitting over 400 the past 8 days. I mean, he's been tearing it up. 2 home runs. He's the bright spot on the Cincinnati Reds. It's kind of pathetic, actually. But I like Tommy Pham. I also like Ha-Sung Kim. He plays utility for the San Diego Padres. He can play second. He played third. He plays like short, I think. He plays like all these positions. Past 2 weeks, over 300 and 2 home runs. Ha-Sung Kim, I like this week. So if you need a utility guy in the infield, and if you have a guy that's not hitting that well, that's going to be a great pickup. Rowdy Tellez, he plays for Milwaukee. He looks like a softball player. I mean, he looks like somebody to be on my softball team. Big guy. He had 2 home runs yesterday and 7 RBIs. He has 21 RBIs, and he's played in 20 games. What does that tell you, Dr. Dan Ratner? The guy's a monster. He also has 7 home runs, which isn't too bad either. I like him a lot. And then you were talking about relief pitchers and how you're nervous and you need some help. Joe Barlow has the past 2 weeks, 0 ERA. I think he has 2 or 3 saves. Pitches for Texas. He's looking really good this year, especially in the past 2 weeks. And he's under 50%, actually. I think he's like 48% or 43%, whatever. But Joe Barlow is another pickup I like. I usually don't say relief pitchers, but I wanted to put him in there just so you pick him up. And those are my top 4 picks of the week.
Love it. Love the energy, Ross. Joe Barlow, I will say this. People have a tendency to discount these closers that are on bad teams. Yes, they are probably going to get a handful fewer saves. But the thing is, he has a stranglehold on the job. He just wasn't getting in those positions. It happens. Sometimes teams get like 10 saves in 1 month, and then they go 2 or 3 saves. It happens. So Joe Barlow is a great pickup. Here are my guys that I think are kind of top priority pickups. And we actually had a comment on this on our last waiver wire video. We did not mention Sheldon Noose. And this guy, he qualifies as second base and third base, plays for the Oakland A's. The Oakland A's, they just always I told you, they always find somebody to be useful. Now, I told you they were going to do well in the standings, and that's clearly not happening. And they're working against themselves on that. But Sheldon Noose is a very useful pickup in fantasy. The guy is now up to he was up to a 329 average as of May 3rd with an 853 OPS. He's looking great, and he looks the part. He's drawing walks. He does what Oakland A's players do, but the reason I like him most is his position. Second base and third base, those are the 2 most challenging positions of hitters this year, I am finding. Now, maybe not everybody's finding that third base, I think we all know, is very thin. But speaking of which, I mentioned Jose Miranda as a top pickup. You got to pounce on these guys early. Admittedly, he's 1 for 13 so far. Does he look good? No, not right now. But I still think if you got room on your roster, you add him. I don't have him as one of my top 4 pickups, though, actually. When you see a guy start off that slow, especially in redraft leagues, sometimes you don't have time to wait around for that. You got to find a good guy. So I put Sheldon Noose above him. Alec Baum is the third baseman I'd be picking up. And he's actually 60% roster, so he's right on that border. It's last call on him. This guy, I think, is going to be a star. That's what people thought when he first came up. These guys often struggle when they first come up. Now, there's guys like Jared Kelenic who you're like, well, maybe he's just not going to make it. And that does happen. Victor Robles, I took a chance on bringing back. We'll see. But Alec Baum is a guy who I think is arriving. 2 pitchers to mention. Christian Javier, he's in the Houston rotation. It looks like he's going to stick there. He's always put up great numbers. He is a fantastic pickup. Snag him while you can. And lastly, my old friend Corey Kluber. The guy looks good, and the Rays just know how to work with pitchers. So I'd scoop him up if you can. Those are my top 4. Ross, what do you think?
I like Kluber. He's a lefty, throws hard. He had great outings this year. I like him a lot. I'm not Javier. Last year I liked him. I mean, he's a consistent player. I don't know if he'll be starting, but it doesn't matter. As I mentioned in the past, starting pitching is like 55% of the innings that are pitched in Major League Baseball. They're 45% are relief pitchers. So if you get a good relief pitcher like Javier, it helps you. I mean, it's all help. I like your picks. Oakland A's, I mean, you're right. You just find these guys. And I had a lot of these. I'll mention some of those names that you mentioned when we talk about each position. So I approve on your list.
Well, thank you. I just have one correction. Corey Kluber has always been a right-handed pitcher.
I thought he's lefty. I don't know why. I have no idea why I thought that, but keep going.
No, I mean, I've seen him pitch. I was like, unless I was hallucinating for many, many years. I
don't know why I thought he was a lefty. That's weird stuff.
Weird stuff. You stand corrected. All right, let's move into catchers, Ross. And we can't go to Casey. It's got to be one of me or you. So we're going to go to catchers. And
start. I don't mind. Catchers is like a streaker position. It's like I was trying to study it, and like Salvador Perez is like hitting under 200. I mean, he's like the premier catcher hitting guy in fantasy baseball, and he's like under 200, and he's not. I don't think he has any home runs. I have to look that up, but he's having a horrible season. So, and you're trying to think like, who do I get?
Salvador Perez has 5 homers this year.
He's 5 homers.
He's batting terribly otherwise.
Okay, so he has 5 homers, but he's hitting under 200. He's not the premier guy that everybody thought, but 5 home runs is good. So my number one, my pickup, I like this guy from Texas. I think I mentioned last time, Jonah Heim. He's in the past 2 weeks, he's hitting .315 and has like 11 RB. I mean, he's getting RBIs also. I think he only has 1 home run, but again, he's a streaker. I don't know how long it will go on for, but he is hitting over 300, which I like for a catcher. And then the other one I like is Ryan Jeffers. He plays for Minnesota. And in the past 2 weeks, he's been hitting 300 and has 2 home runs. So if you get these catchers that are hitting 300, it's a streaker. Take them. Pick them up. Go for it. Because there's so many bad hitting catchers right now in the league. And you just got to find the ones that are hot. And then you dump them and get the next guy that's hot. I mean, it's not a bad idea.
You can do a lot worse sticking with any of these guys. There's a lot of bad catchers out there. Interestingly, there's only 10 catchers who are rostered 60% and higher overall, which is that's like I would say I have to take a poll, but I would say a big percentage of fantasy baseball owners streak catchers. Yeah, well, I think this is another reason why Adley Rutschman is a really good pickup. I mean, he's going to play later in the year.
Right now he's in AAA. They brought him from single A to AAA. I don't know. There's no schedule when he's coming back. I have him in a few leagues, and I agree with you. I think he'll be a star. I don't know if it's going to be this year. It could be next year. Yep. But he's definitely somebody that you want to pick up and stash. That's a great one.
Now, I'm not sure about picking up this guy, but MJ Melendez, also on the Kansas City Royals, he's a big-time prospect, and he got called up. It could be that they're going to find room for him in – I mean, look, I think they probably wouldn't have called him up if they weren't going to give him some playing time. So again, if you're looking for a streaker to check out, I do that. Remember, on this show, we call them streakers. We understand.
Right, and it could be maybe they're trading Perez. I mean, I don't know. Kansas City.
Maybe he's more. Maybe he's hurting in a way that people don't know. I mean, there's something going on there. I'd pick him up. Francisco Mejia is another guy that I kept my eye on. He's batting .348. He's going to keep getting more and more playing time, so I'd watch out for him. Ross, let's move to first base. You mentioned Rowdy Tellez already. Who else do you have in mind?
I like. He sounds like a golfer. This guy. He plays for the Diamondbacks. Pavin Smith. We mention him almost every season. His name comes up all the time. He's always been under like 30%. I mean, no one picks him up. But Pavin Smith.
I did last year.
I know you did. Past 2 weeks, hitting .308, 3 home runs. Great stats. I mean, first base this year is probably the most productive position in fantasy baseball. There's a lot of good first basemen right now. Hosmer and Tellez. I mean, we got a lot. And then there's also the guy from Miami that no one knows about because he plays for the Marlins is Jesus Aguilar. And Jesus is hitting .372 in the past 2 weeks with 2 home runs. That's a streaker. And Jesus, or I can call him Jesus, either one. It's fine to say both. But Jesus, great, hitting unbelievable. I mean, both these guys, if you pick them up and the thing is this, if you play fantasy baseball, your first baseman is probably doing a lot of producing. So it's going to be hard for you to sit him down and get somebody else. But the good news is if you have utility, you can pick them up and put them in the utility spot. So I love the first baseman position. I think that's the most productive position this year. And you should definitely, you have roster room, pick one of these 3 guys up.
All right, a guy who has sunk below 60% is Trey Mancini. I don't think he belongs at those numbers. He should be rostered more. I understand that they've changed the contours of Camden Yards, but the reality is he's a very good first base option. I'd be happy to have him on my team. Maybe not as the primary option, but he's a great backup or plug and play for a while. Another guy that I really like who's coming on is Josh Naylor. I mentioned him last week. Guardians player, so it's and
Naylor can play outfield too, right?
He has outfield eligibility as well.
Yeah, I mean that's a good pickup. He's pitting great.
Yep. So anybody else you want to mention, Ross, before we move on?
No, I mean first base. There's a number of guys that are available that you could pick up. I mean,
first base is pretty.
Unfortunately, Hosmer for San Diego actually shot up to 75%, so you can't pick him up anymore.
But you know what? I think he's going to sink back down because I think he's getting some high BABIP numbers. He's getting some look.
And remember, Brandon Belt is hurt and he has COVID, so he'll be back later in the week. And I love Brandon Belt. He's healthy. He's great.
Yep. All right, I'm going to start us off at second base, Ross. I'm just going to mention one guy and then I'll flip it to you. But a guy that I like very much at second base this season and really in general is Joey Wendell. We've talked about him before.
Yeah, utility.
He's got eligibility at second base, shortstop, and third base.
Yep.
And he's just always putting up good numbers. And particularly if you're in a rotisserie league and you need stolen bases and let's say you're weak at second base, pick him up. I mean, he's not running a ton, but he has stolen 3 bases in only 29 at bats. So he is hurt currently, but I don't pay much attention to that unless you're hurt for a long time. I look for people who are good long-term additions. So he's a guy I'd mentioned. Ross, I'll flip it to you and then I'll come back for more.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Wendell. He's on my list. And Ha-Sung Kim is also utility. He can play I have him at second base. The Padres have a really good team, and he's right in the meat of the order. So he'll be a good pickup. And then young Sheldon, the guy we mentioned that plays for the A's, he's utility also. I have him at second base the past 2 weeks, he's been hitting over 300. I mean, I don't know where the A's find these guys. I mean, they find these no-name guys, and all of a sudden they're like stars. And then their contract's over, and they trade them or they decide a free agency. So we'll see how long he stays with the A's. But Sheldon Noose, is that how you say it, Dan?
I've been saying it's Sheldon Noose, but this is
Sheldon Noose.
I don't watch a ton of games.
He's West Coast, so I watch him play. I like him a lot too, and you can't go wrong with either of those 2 guys, picking those 2 guys up.
All right, so I'm going to mention another guy. I know I'm mentioning lots of Guardians players, but they just happen to be, I think, good pickups. Andres Jimenez.
Yep. I have him at shortstop. Yep.
Yeah, he's second base shortstop, so you could mention him in either one. But maybe it's because for me, I'm stronger at shortstop in my leagues than I am at second base in both leagues. So I have my eye more on second base, but you plug him in where it works for your lineup. But this guy, he's doing a bit of everything. He's batting .350 at the moment. And is that going to last? Probably. Well, no, that's not going to last. But is he going to hit 300? He could. In the meantime, he's producing pretty well in a surprising lineup. So he's another guy that I'd scoop up. Looking at the list, there's lots of guys to go around depending on what you need. We've mentioned Jorge Mateo. I know he's hitting 186, but again, It's all about what you need. If you need stolen bases, grab Mateo. Although I'd honestly probably rather have Joey Wendell because he's going to steal some bases, and he's also putting up much better numbers. Another guy that we've mentioned a couple times is Pharaoh Estrada. The guy's still a young guy, and he's hitting pretty well. It's sad to say that a 244 average is hitting pretty well, but these days it actually is.
It's above average. The average is 231. So, yeah, he's above average. So pick him up.
And meanwhile, the Giants, they have a knack for finding people these days also.
The Giants I think they have one of the best records in the league. I mean, they're playing great. I mean, and they score runs. It's a run-producing team.
So let's move to shortstop, Ross. I'll give you first crack at it.
So shortstop, as you mentioned, Andres Jimenez for Cleveland. Past 2 weeks, he's been hitting .350. He's been tearing it up. A bunch of RBIs. I think he has close to 10 RBIs in 2 weeks, and he's been doing great. And also, I like the shortstop for the Cubs, especially when it gets hot. When it's hot in Chicago, the ball flies out of there. I mean, Wrigley Field's like a joke. I mean, these guys that barely have any power hit home runs. It's unbelievable. So Nico, how you say it?
Oh my God, he's giving you COVID again.
Sorry.
Are you okay?
Nico Hoerner?
Nico Hoerner.
Yeah, he's hitting .323 in the past 2 weeks. Not much power, but he steals bases, and he also loves to hit for average. So Nico won't hurt you at shortstop. If you need a shortstop and you're weak there, and you need somebody to boost your average up, he's the guy to pick up.
Yeah, and I'll mention Pharaoh Estrada also qualifies as shortstop and outfield. So he's a really useful player. And just like Joey Wendell is, although players that can play in the middle infield and outfield spots can be very helpful in a lot of rosters in a lot of leagues. I keep banging the drum for Jeremy Pena. He's having a terrible couple weeks.
The past 2 weeks, he's like hitting under 200. He's horrible.
But don't give up on him.
I won't give up. I'll start him every game until you tell me to drop him.
Good, because players like him they're going to go through spells like that as pitchers make adjustments. Yeah. I think later in the year, this guy is actually still going to be a monster. Do not cut.
I will not cut him.
Good. And if he sucks for you for 2.5 months,
I'll just blame you with all my misery. Don't worry.
That's fine. Another guy I'd stick with is actually C.J. Abrams. Especially in keeper and dynasty leagues, no question. But he's starting to come around. Especially if you need stolen bases. Eventually, he's going to qualify at second base. He's 3 starts away from that. He's, I believe, 3 starts away from the outfield as well. So he's going to have a lot of good position eligibility, and hang on for that. Anybody you'd add from shortstop that we should mention?
I mean, everybody else is over 60%. I mean,
well, you still have guys like O'Neal Cruz. Always scoop up.
Yeah.
If you don't know who to own, scoop up a prospect. If they get promoted, everybody's going to go bananas for them. I mean, if you had scooped up Jose Miranda when he got picked up and then immediately traded him, you actually probably would have gotten some kind of nice gain from it. That would have been,
that would have been well done.
At the same time, you could miss out on something great if you deal somebody too fast. But speaking of Miranda, let's move over to third base. Third base is the toughest position. I can't believe Alec Baum is still only.
So, I mean, who would you say has the best lineup in baseball, in Major League Baseball? What team do you think has from 1 to 9, what's the most scariest lineup? What team?
To me, I would go with the Toronto Blue Jays.
That's what I agree with you. See, we agreed. With Guerrero and Bichette and Hernandez. I mean, there's Chapman. And I mean, so Santiago Espinal, he plays a couple positions, third base, second base. The past 2 weeks, he's hitting 273. I think he has 1 home run, but doesn't matter. He's in this lineup where he scores a lot of runs. He gets on base, he scores. I like this guy a lot, especially being involved in that lineup, and he's like under 30%. So he's my number 1 pickup at third base. Another guy I've been beating the drum on is Wilmer Flores. I had him as one of my top picks a couple weeks ago. Past 2 weeks, he's still hitting 311 the past 2 weeks. I mean, the guy's been tearing the cover off the ball. I feel he's still a good pickup. He plays like 3 other positions, so it's another utility guy. Always good to have a utility guy in your team. But those are my 2 big pickups at third base this week. What do you got?
All right, I like it. I'm still promoting Nolan Gorman. I think that he's going.
So
he
hasn't been. Up. He's not in the. He's in the majors. He's not in the majors.
No, he's in the minors. But he's a guy that, first of all, they're grooming him for second base, so he's going to have third base and second base eligibility once he's up. The question is, when is he going to come up? I understand some people could say, "Oh, you're not going to see him until August." And look, it's possible, but right now. If you don't know who to be stashing on your bench, he is a great stash because the minute he gets called up, people are going to be after him like crazy. So Patrick Wisdom has actually, he's grown on me over the years, especially as batting averages has plummeted. He's started to get into a position where I find that he's really very rosterable. And not only that, he's got first base, third base, and outfield eligibility. So this is a good guy to have on your team. Now we have a question coming in. It's Jack Flaherty or Luis Castillo make any noise this year? So Ross, I'm going to turn it over to you.
So Flaherty, he hasn't pitched an inning this year. He's been hurt. Castillo too. I like Flaherty better than Castillo. I think when Castillo gets healthy, I believe he's going to be traded. Why not? The Reds haven't done anything this year. Might as well trade him too. Yeah. Castillo had a great September and August. So both guys I do like. I don't like Castillo as a Red, though. If he has to be traded, which I think he will be as soon as he's healthy. And Flaherty, when he's healthy, he's the ace of this Cardinals. I mean, he's great. It's just getting his health back. I think he's starting to throw off the mound again, the last thing I read about him. So he should be back hopefully next couple of weeks. But both guys I do like, but Flaherty a little bit more.
All right, this is one of those cases where, Ross, I know you have trouble with pronunciation sometimes. His name's Flaherty. But when you say it Flattery, Flattery will get you everywhere. It's good. I think that Flaherty is the way to go between the two. And you know, the reason I go that direction is he has monstrous upside. I find that when you, not only that, but I actually think he has the lower floor if he's healthy without any question. Flaherty's question is health. Is he going to make noise this year? Yeah, I think that he probably will. You know, obviously he's an injury risk, but I think you go for him. He's somebody that I would buy low on if you can get him for pretty cheap. Castillo, honestly, I've never trusted. Even when he pitched pretty well, if you look at his overall track record, it's just not that good. I'd rather have the guy where the health is the issue, but when he plays, it looks good. So I'd go for Flaherty on that one. All right, Ross, we're going to move to outfielder, and I want to know who you got. Remember, there's 3 outfield positions, so we may spend some more time on this one.
So Tommy Pham, I mentioned, I still keep beating his drum. I feel he'll be a top 20 outfielder in Major League Baseball in fantasy for you. So if you want to get him, you should pick him up now. He's always been a good hitter. Just keep him away from strip clubs. He gets in trouble at strip clubs. If you don't know the story, just look it up on the internet. Austin Hayes for Baltimore. He plays small market guy. Past 2 weeks, he's hitting 327. He hits for power too. I think he has 2 home runs. He can steal some bases for you. There's a guy that plays for Oakland that was just getting off suspension. He was suspended for steroids. If you're getting caught for steroids at this time of age, you're an idiot, first of all. I mean, there's so many ways to get around it. I mean, there's the moron. But Ramon Laureano.
I am our resident pronouncer.
Ramon Laureano, he is a stud. When he comes back, he'll be the best hitter in Oakland. I guarantee it. He hits for power. He steals bases. This guy's a true star. Even though he plays in Oakland, it doesn't matter. He'll do really well. If you want a good outfielder, pick him up now. He won't be available when he comes back. And then Yadriel Hernandez plays for Washington. Again, another small market team. No one cares about the Nationals anymore. They're rebuilding. The past 2 weeks, though, he's hitting over 370, and he has like a bunch of RBIs too. So he is having a really good season. So if you need some small market guys on your team, hopefully you do, that can hit, these guys are for you, because these are guys that are not picked up at all, because no one wants to watch Baltimore or Oakland or even the Nationals play. So pick these guys up now. Even Tommy Pham, I gave you 4 guys that are on small market teams, that are on bad teams, that actually will have good seasons.
Okay, and I wanted to say Austin Hayes was priority pickup in my mind. Again, I understand the concerns about Baltimore's park having changed dimensions, but
they did. Why did they move it deeper?
I have no idea. I don't know. I mean, why
if you own the team, why do you want to make the ballpark bigger and make it more like less runs in a game? It makes it so boring. It's like
my guess is that they've struggled with pitching for so long that they felt like, all right, let's play to our strengths somehow. But ironically, I think what they did is take away their strengths. Go ahead and be a hitting team. Not that they've been that great for hitting, but I think it's hurt Mountcastle. It hasn't hurt Hayes because he's developing. But the thing is, Hayes was a top prospect not long ago. It happened so fast.
I mean, look at Mullins. Look at Hayes. I mean, look at Mullins. He's having not a great season, and he got Mancini too. You talked about earlier. I mean, these guys are not the same hitters they were last year, and you can tell because of that ballpark change. I agree, 100%.
But even so, don't overcorrect. A guy like Hayes is a good pickup. But we have a question coming in from Eric Zapata. Varsho or Stevenson in a head-to-head league? I'm going to take this first, Ross, and then I'll kick it over.
Go ahead.
My opinion is Varsho all the way. I understand that there could be all kinds of questions about which of these kinds of catchers is the one to have, but Varsho has been killing it this year. I mean, I understand maybe a 244 average is nothing that great, but in this day and age, it's above average, which is sad. It's a pathetic statement about baseball. But the guy hits for power. He has speed. He even has outfield eligibility. And it's not like you'd want to be playing Varsho in your outfield lineup in all likelihood. But what I like about it is it's a sign that he's going to be in the lineup a lot. So that is why I'd take him. Ross, what do you think?
As you know, I'm a Cincinnati Red guy, and Stevenson just got off the DL. He had a home run today. He is when he's healthy, he is really, really good. And he showed it last year. The Reds had him platooning with Tucker Barnhart. Tucker Barnhart was traded away to the Tigers. Stevenson can play first. He can play catcher. Votto's out. I think he has COVID, actually. But Votto's out for a little bit. So Steven catches play first. I like Stevenson just because I think he's like one of those young Turks that's going to make a big impact at that catcher position. So I like Stevenson.
All right. Eric Zapata says, thanks, guys. And JP gave us a smile with sunglasses before, so we're pleasing the fans. I'm glad to see it. And Eric, that was a very intelligent question because you're asking a question about 2 very good catcher pickups. 2
different catchers, too. I mean,
different.
Marshall plays outfield. I mean, I watched Diamondback games, and he's always playing outfield. I haven't seen him catch in a while, actually. But they're both top 10 players in their position at catcher, so you can't go wrong.
Okay, there's also a mention of Ruiz on Washington. JP says he's looking great. Absolutely. I think Kelber Ruiz was a sleeper for some at that position. And he's looking great. I mean, it depends on what kind of league you're playing in terms of his value. But listen, when you're looking for a good enough catcher, Ruiz is looking really good. All right, let's get back to – actually, I was going to switch back to outfield, but I just happened to glance at a stat. And I was like, we talked about first base. I did not realize what Rowdy Tellez is doing. It's insane.
I told you.
No, I know you mentioned him.
I told you he's hitting like softball numbers. And the guy.
But I'm giving you props for it.
Okay, tell me the stat. I can't wait to hear this.
Well, I mean, if you just look at his numbers overall, they're insane. He has 21 RBIs.
I said that earlier, and you didn't blink.
No, you said 17 RBIs, if I recall.
I said 21. You can go back to the tape.
Oh, was it 21 and 7? And
I said 27 home runs, of course. But what I'm saying, he's like, he looks like a guy in my beer league. In all seriousness, and he was platooning. He started the year platooning, but now they have to start him.
But it shows you how little people believe in him. He's 34% rostered with those numbers. That's
what I'm saying. First base, it's
because of first base. You're right.
Yeah.
But if we go back to outfield, Austin Hayes probably my top outfield pickup that's kind of floating around there. But there's some other really interesting and good players. I would take a chance on Victor Robles in a lot of leagues, especially in keeper leagues. But he's starting to come around. And remember, this happened with Byron Buxton. People were like, oh, no, he's a bust. These guys are not a bust right away. If they're hitting like Jared Kelenic is, you can't start them. You may not even be able to own them, especially not in a redraft league. But you got to stick with the guys with that pedigree, because a lot of times they're going to come back really, really strong. Another guy that I might take a chance on, just filling in, is Nick Senzel is starting to come around. I know he just got COVID, so I get it. But I'm always looking at the long-term play. So he's starting to hit for average. And, again, it depends on what you need. However, I will say this. I'm not playing Nick Senzel in the outfield. If I'm scooping him, I'm probably playing him at second base. I'm curious as to your position on Brandon Marsh, Ross. He's cold as ice right now. But what do you think about him?
Brandon Marsh?
Yes.
I love all those Angel young guns. Joe Adell, Brandon Marsh, Tyler Ward.
Adell, meanwhile, did just get sent back down.
Who did?
Back up soon.
Who got sent down?
Joe Adell.
Well, I'm just saying I still liked all three of them.
Oh, I agree.
I'm not saying I would start them, but Brandon Marsh looks like a homeless guy. I mean, he really does. He makes Charlie Blackmon look like clean cut. I mean, this guy, I don't think he's shaved in 2 years. I mean, it's a dumb. So I like Brandon Marsh. I think he'll hit. He's a star to be. He's going to be a star in the league. I like these young outfielders the Angels have on their team.
Okay, now that being said, we talked about Max Kepler.
He's hurt. He's day to day. He hurt himself. So I have him on a few
He's
teams.
Cleaning up today, so he's back.
Oh, he's back. But okay, I like him.
He was dinged up. I'm just saying he's back today.
I mean, 2019, this guy was a stud. I mean, this guy was 30 home run. I mean, it was unbelievable. And then last year and the year before, he was kind of back to planet Earth. But this year, he's hitting for power again. He's looking like his old self. I like him a lot. I like Minnesota's team a lot. And I feel if you pick him up, he's not going to do you wrong.
Yep. I like him a lot.
I like it a lot.
I'll mention also Stephen Kwan. He was a hot pickup a while back. Then he cooled off. A guy that can hit for that kind of average. Anybody who can do any of these skill sets that's rare, you could do a lot worse than having them on your team. All right,
I saw him interviewed and on MLB. He was on the MLB channel, and he's like a guy that is just happy to be playing in Major League Baseball. I mean,
that's fun to watch.
I mean, he's just happy to be there, and he gets so excited when he sees like. I mean, he plays with all these guys that he watched when he was a kid. I mean, he'll go up to him and like act like a little kid around them. You know, he'll ask for their autograph. I mean, he's a real fan, this guy. I mean, I love this guy. And it's fun to see somebody that has that humbleness about him. I like that kid a lot.
Fun to see the joy in the game. All right, let's move to starting pitching. I'm going to talk about a guy, former Dodgers farmhand, Josiah Gray. You've talked about him before, I know.
Yep.
But I think he's very, very well worth a pickup. He's showing all the signs of being a breakout pitcher. People say, oh, but he's not going to get wins on Washington. I don't worry that much about wins. You got a lot bigger numbers to worry about it. When a guy is putting up good ERA, good strikeouts, good whip, 3 out of 4 with starting pitching, I'll take that in a heartbeat, especially when wins are the one you're hurting in. If you're hurting your strikeout rate, it's hard to come back from that. But wins they're often pretty random, except for how deep a pitcher is going into a game. If they're always pitching 5 innings, yes, they're going to get less wins. That's more concerning to me than the team they're on, because I want to see them go deep into games. But I think that Josiah Gray is a great pickup. He's only 53% rostered. That probably is going to go above 60% pretty soon. So pounce on him now. Ross, who do you have at starting pitcher?
I usually don't talk about Colorado pitchers because I just stay away. Just because, the ball flies out of that place. But there's a couple of guys they have. The one guy I like a little more is Austin Gumper. His ERA is like under 2. In the past 2 weeks, he has 20 strikeouts in 18 innings. That's the Dan Ratner test. If you have more strikeouts than innings, you pass Ratner's test. It's a proven fact. That's how he picks up his pitchers. I have that tested. That's how he does it. Jordan Montgomery.
Next, go ahead.
Jordan Montgomery of the Yankees. He's been pitching like every game this year he pitched. I believe he's got into the 5th inning. I mean, his ERA is under 3. I mean, he's been pitching great, and he pitches for the Yankees, who I feel have a top 5 lineup. Very good offensive team, and they had the best record earlier in the week. Them and the Mets had the best record in baseball, which hasn't happened in a long time in May. Maybe it'd be a Subway Series. We'll see what happens.
The Subway Series is reminding me. I think it was 2000 that happened.
Yeah, maybe it'd be a Subway Series. Be exciting. So Jordan, and then a guy that plays for Seattle. I know you're saying, Ross, I don't want a guy that pitches on the West Coast. I'm in the East Coast. I want to follow. Chris Flexon of Seattle has been like money every time he pitches. He's solid. He reminds me like an old school pitcher, like a Rick Rhoden or like a Steve Marshall, like somebody that loves to pitch 7-8 innings, gets the strikeouts. He's like an old school pitcher and just throws really hard. So those are my favorites. There's a lot of other pitchers are a weird position just because you got to see who they're playing. Like anytime a team plays the Cincinnati Reds, you should start that pitcher. If they're playing against the Reds, you start them. That's an automatic rule because the Reds are awful. And I think they lost again today. But long story short, those are my favorite pitchers to pick up for this week.
It is a way to go to start, working against the teams that are bad. But here's a couple guys I'd start against anybody. I mentioned Christian Javier and Corey Kluber already.
We love Christian. He's not Jewish, though. I believe he's not Jewish.
With a first name like Christian, who would think it? All right, but I'm going to surprise you now. Here's a guy that
hold on. Tell me what team.
Okay, the Boston Red Sox.
Whitlock's over 60%, so I know it's not Whitlock.
That's not him. Okay, I'd snap him up in a second, but you could do a lot worse than Michael Wacha. Michael
Wacha, now journeyman, he's having a pretty good season. People thought he was washed up, and he's pitching really well in Boston. That's an interesting pickup.
Yeah, and listen, the reason that's surprising is he's not a strikeout. He doesn't strike out per inning. So, but at this stage in the game, you sometimes need to scoop up the pitcher that's,
That's a good
I
one.
actually wanted to scoop him up in our keeper league after I dealt Lucas Giolito, who is the only fantasy player I've ever owned that I've also interviewed. I can't believe I dealt him. I'm sorry, Lucas.
That's a good quiz question. Yes.
Yes. But another guy to pick up, Max Meyer is a big-time prospect with the Miami Marlins. Their pitching staff is lights out. Is there room for him is the question. But I think you want to keep an eye on him. He's somebody who I think is going to get the call sooner or later, for sure. Another guy that I have my eye on, very, very low roster ship, 6%, Ronzi Contreras of the Pittsburgh Pirates. He's up and down between the minor leagues and major leagues right now, but speaking of big-time strikeout rate, he could be a guy like Christian Javier who's just pitching multiple innings. So I say scoop him up. All right, Ross, let's move to relief pitching, the dreaded closer spot, or maybe middle relievers. Who do you have? And we'll wrap up here.
So I mentioned Joe Barlow. He's been money in the past 2 weeks, gave up no runs. I think he has 3 saves. He's under 50%. I would pick him up if he's available in your league. Another guy that's a streaker, but he's known as a closer in the past 5 years. He's been like unbelievable. Ian Kennedy of the Arizona Diamondbacks is their closer right now because McComb is hurt. He's not available. So Kennedy has, I believe in the past 2 weeks, he's has 3 saves. So if you need a guy to get saves, Dan Ratner, it's a guy that you should pick up. He's a streaker. Don't say, oh, Ross, I picked him up and it's July and he hasn't got a save opportunity. Well, it's not my fault because I'm saying right now he's a streaker and he'll in the next 10 days, he'll get you some saves. After that, I don't know. But again, I like Clay Holmes also of the Yankees. He's been lights out also. I know that if your league has holds in it, if that counts as a category, Clay Holmes I like a lot. I like it a lot. And again, as I mentioned, like the Christian Javier, he's a relief pitcher too. He's an RP. So these guys that are long relievers that come in, Kopech of the White Sox, all these guys will get you innings. I mean, they'll all do you justice during the season. So don't feel if you don't have a closer, you're not going to do well. Some of these guys who are middle relief, they're going to get you innings, going to get you strikeouts. They're going to help your team tremendously. But I get you want saves, and I just gave you two guys who'll get you saves this week.
Meanwhile, if you're looking at pitchers and you're trying to evaluate them as relief pitchers and they have bad numbers as starters, don't get put off by that. A lot of times guys don't make it as starters, but if they're just going through the lineup one time, they do great. So look at how they're doing. If they're doing well this season and they had bad numbers before, but they're being pitched in high leverage roles and they're doing well, that's a good sign. Dylan Floro, I think, is somebody to scoop up. 24% rostered.
Is he back? He's back, right? He was hurt starting the year.
He's just about to come back.
Oh, he's just about okay. And then Bender got shelled a couple.
That's right. He's struggling. I think the door's wide open for Dylan Floro.
I do too. Even though Bender has 5 saves, I agree with you. I think Floro is a good pickup. Ex-Dodger too.
That's right. Another guy that, much to my chagrin, Danny Jimenez, to me, seems to have taken over the Oakland closer spot. Everyone's saying, but they want to highlight Trevino so they can trade him. Guess what? Oakland wants to highlight anybody. It doesn't matter who it is. I don't think they're going to go back to Trevino, particularly if it's not the way he's pitching right now.
No, I mentioned him a couple days. He throws really hard. I mean, this guy. I know he lost the game for him a couple days ago, but it doesn't matter. I agree with you. He's the future closer wherever he goes. He's really good.
Yep, I think the same is true with Joan Duran, except that he has Pagan in front of him, so he has a tougher road to get there. Tanner Rainey still has the job, but he's not getting a lot of opportunity.
It's weird. Kittredge got the same. I mean, don't pick up any closers for Tampa. That's my suggestion to you. You're going to be pulling your hair out.
That's true, although I didn't mention a Tampa closer. Who did you think I was talking about?
Rainey of Tampa Bay.
No. Rainey's on Washington.
Okay.
That explains it. I was like, what's happening here? So, guys, we have plenty of recommendations for you. Keep picking up these guys. The more you work the waiver wire at the beginning of the year, the better off you're going to be. A lot of the value is here at the beginning. Also, keep in mind it's a long season, so we're going to take you through it because some managers are going to lose their focus. You don't have to. Keep focusing. Come to us. Focus on what's available on the waiver wire. We'll give you all the great picks. Thanks so much for watching. If you haven't already, click subscribe, ring the bell for notifications. Hit like if you like what you're hearing. Put your comments below, and we'll get back to you personally. We will see you same time next week.